Hello there. Welcome to Existential Sunday. Welcome to all of you who are watching this via replay, which is probably most of you who are watching via replay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If we do not know one another, we've not connected before. My name is Corey, and I am a husband, father, a podcaster, and I host this that you are watching right now, Existential Sunday, every week. I sit here and talk about things that are going on in the world and talk about justice, faith, and culture. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to take a few moments and welcome those of you who are coming in live in person. So I'm going to turn the comments on. And if you're watching via replay, you can just sort of fast forward through all of this as I'm saying hello to those of you who are coming in. If you're here live, just shoot me a comment. Even if you're here on the replay, shoot me a comment so I can say hi to you later. I won't be able to say hi in real time, obviously, but I do want to take a moment to say good morning to all of you who are here live. So if you could, while we're getting ready for folks to come in, say good morning. Good morning, Rebecca. Good morning, Tom. The great Tom Epperly, Dr. Tom Epperly is here this morning. Good morning. Good morning, Tabitha. Good morning to my beautiful wife, Julia. Good morning. Love you. Okay. Good morning, Sherry. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Megan. And I'm going to give like 10 more seconds of good morning before I go away from the comments. Good morning, Keisha. I say Kesha, like the singer. What happened to Kesha? Anyway, stay focused, Corey. One more good morning, and then I'm going to get out of here. And not out of here. I'm going to go and away from the comments. I won't see them, and I'll say what I want to say. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay. All right. Well, good morning to all of you. Feel free to share this if you'd like. You can share it on the replay. You can still share it if you want to share it now. You're here live. You can feel free to share it. You never have to ask my permission to do so. Before I get into what we're talking about today, which I think is actually pretty important, I want to do a couple housekeeping things. I was away from social media for a couple of days, and probably will even after today go back to being away for a little bit. It's good for the soul to unplug from the internet from time to time. I think it's important. It's certainly good for me, and I hadn't done it in a while. It had been too long since I'd actually unplugged totally from social media, and so I was unplugged till this morning. Well, I jumped in last night to tell you guys to tune in today and then jump back off. But this morning, I came back to a comment that bothered me. It's rare that comments really get to me. There's a lot of comments that show up on my Facebook feed, my posts, and things that I say, which is natural. But this comment has been made a few different times, and forgive me for the fact that most of you don't need to hear this, but some of you may. There's this idea that exists that I've heard a couple different times or seen a couple different times in the comments about a narrative, that I'm pushing a narrative and that I don't make space for anything that doesn't fit in that narrative. I want to be very clear with all of you. Okay. All of you who choose to enter into the comment section, which many of you are doing even now live and hopefully on the replay. I am when I come on Facebook, when I make a comment on Facebook, when I go live on Facebook, I'm well aware of the fact that it's potentially available to thousands of people. At least every week, there's at least 1,000 views on each one of these videos. And then the stuff I post, who knows how many people see that, right? I'm aware of the fact that it's out there for public consumption. I know that. I'm not putting it out there just so that only a select few group of people can hear it, see it, and comment on it. But if you do choose to comment on a post, on anyone's post, maybe this is public service announcement for anyone. If you do choose to comment on anyone's Facebook post, that person is not responsible for the fact that some people may disagree with you, and that some people may disagree with you harshly. Harsh comments on the internet is like par for the course these days. The stuff that people say to me on a regular basis, I'm not going to act like it doesn't. Sometimes it's hurtful. It's painful. There's personal attacks. There's people that attack my intelligence. There's people who claim I'm racist. There's people who claim that I'm not a Christian. There's people who claim that I'm whatever, all these claims that come out, I'm not going to write a letter to Facebook and blame Zuckerberg because I made a comment that someone disagreed with. I'm aware of the fact that not everyone on Facebook is an adult, though you're supposed to be an adult to be on it. Not everyone's mature enough to engage in good faith dialogue. I try to hold space for good faith dialogue. What is not good faith dialogue is when people try to make assumptions about me who they don't know because of something that I shared on Facebook. And people assume that I'm pushing a narrative, and people assume that I don't make space for white folks or disagreement. All of those things are not good faith dialogue. And if you think that I'm just supposed to respond to people's personal attacks, again, of my intelligence, of my intentions, of my faith, that I'm supposed to just like to make space for that and act like that's good faith dialogue, you are sadly mistaken. I will never do that, nor should you. And I hope that this is the last time I have to address this, but maybe, who knows? I may have to address it again in the future. Who knows? But I just wanted to make sure and be clear as I say that to you, that I am not trying to build an echo chamber. I shouldn't even have to freaking say this, but this morning I felt like I needed to. So I'm saying it, and I'm done with it. Moving on to the reason why I'm live today, the stuff I want to say to you today. I want to talk to you about what the title of this is the time that God subverted, or I shouldn't even say the time that God, I should just say as a statement, God subverts trickle-down economics, and I'll explain to you how and why after I tell you one last housekeeping thing, that you watching this don't have to agree with me. You don't have to take everything I say and be like, oh, it's gospel. I am a human being expressing my thoughts based on what I've read, seen, experienced, heard, and believe. Putting it out there for you to wrestle with, just so we're clear. So to get into it, a couple of years ago, I think it was like 99. I hope nobody, don't try to fact check me. Some of y'all just love to fact check. But I think it was like 99 that the first time I saw, I think it was a DVD player. I was at a wealthy white family's house in Northern Illinois, and they had Gladiator on. And it was on this really nice TV, and it was super clear. I mean, I was used to watching stuff on VHS. So this was like, I saw this and was like, wow, this is like I feel like I can reach out and touch people now. It's actually comical now to look, because right now the pixels from 99 or what I thought was so amazing is probably better on your cell phone now than it was then. But like I thought, wow, this is so clear. And then the thought behind that was, hopefully one day I'll be able to afford this in my house. Because I thought, and the thought behind that thought was, I know how things work. It's normally the rich, the influential, the famous, the powerful who get access to stuff first, and then it makes its way down to the middle class and sometimes down to the poor. So like in our society, the way it's oriented is normally that's how it works. Like, so I thought, oh, okay, I will eventually be able to get that. It's like with televisions, so, when high definition televisions came out, or flat screens, or 4K televisions, they were super duper expensive, and then over time it trickled its way down to where the average person, I should say the median household incomes could afford to purchase the nicer TVs. And what I find really compelling, interesting, subversive, powerful, if you will, about the Jesus story is that, like, at least from Matthew and Luke's account of the story of Jesus, like they tell the origin story. They tell the story in such a way that is so opposite of the rich and powerful get it first, and then it makes its way down eventually, hopefully, to the poor. They tell Jesus's birth story. I know it's not Christmas, and some of you are like, oh, you can't talk about the birth story unless it's Christmas. They tell his birth story in such a way that, like, the first people to find out about, like, the savior of the world, if you take the Bible seriously, are shepherds. And like throughout, like, my time in church and Sunday school and stuff like that, I never really, and the Christmas plays where you dress up like a shepherd, and the nativity scenes, you see shepherds and wise men at the manger. I never really took into account what the meaning was. The meaning of actually saying that there were shepherds there. The meaning of that is so powerful when you think about the fact, or when you understand the fact that shepherds, like the trade of being a shepherd was the lowest trade that you could have. Like I don't even know what trade we have in America to compare it to. But it was the lowest, it was the grossest. They worked with the stinking, dumb sheep, and they were considered like, they were ridiculed. They were the fodder of like stories and illusions. And when you wanted to describe somebody as terrible, you describe them as a shepherd or tax collector, but for different reasons. But a shepherd was like, if someone had the job of scooping poop off the road all day long, this is what shepherds were. And in the story of Jesus, the first people to get the greatest news that the world has ever seen are not people in Rome, in any of the palaces of Rome, not even in the temple in Jerusalem. But the first people to get this news are people on the lowest rung of society's ladder. And that is what I think is compelling, not just about the Jesus story, but about faith in general. And I know that there are people who watch this that aren't people of faith, and you're welcome to continue watching. This is not something where this is not a church service, if you will. But there is something to me to be said that faith, spirituality, religion should be about evening the playing field. In fact, if this is any example, that if this is any indication of the way God views justice, it is that those who don't have an advocate, those who society pushes out to the margins, are where you find God showing up with a message for the world. And when rich and powerful people wanted to hear about it, they had to go to Bethlehem, to a feeding trough where the Savior of the world was laying, in this feeding trough. And also, as Jesus became an adult, he was from a place that was so like out there, so removed from interest and power and influence, that people said, could anything good come from Nazareth? Jesus of Nazareth was not this title of honor, but almost like a title of shame. You're from Nazareth? Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. So this whole story of Jesus, and even if you go further on into like the Second Testament of the Bible, you see this language that is about the trickle up economics of God's way of being and doing. That those who are not influential, who are not powerful, who are not wealthy, are the ones who carry the message of God to the rest of the world. We have an issue in America because we have received it opposite. We have received the message about God from the dominant culture, who enslaved, oppressed, and dehumanized Black, brown, and indigenous folks and women.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I'm not talking to you, Siri. And women for a couple centuries now, decades, for a long, long time. And so naturally, when we are now like sitting on the heel, it's not the heels. I mean, we are on the precipice of another election. It's natural that people would find that the conversation about faith and culture and society is all screwed up, because it was never intended to be a conversation that trickled down from powerful, rich, wealthy people down to poor and outcast people. It was supposed to be a message that was carried by the outcast to the rest of the world. It hasn't been working for us, for the rich and powerful to tell us our history. That the rich and powerful telling us our history tells us things like Columbus discovered America, and we should honor Columbus every year. We should honor him for discovering somewhere, mind you, the term discovered, somewhere where people were already living. I grew up hearing this in school. I grew up with Columbus being a hero. I grew up in school getting Columbus Day off of school and Columbus Day off of work when I first started working. Thank God it's recently been changed to Indigenous People Day, because I think our society is undergoing an overhaul where we are starting to listen to the voices of the people that are pushed out to the side, because I think that's a better way. And I believe with all of my being that that is the way that if again, if you believe in a higher power, divine being, or divine goodness, whatever it is that you believe in, I believe that that thing, that person, that energy, that power tends to move with the folks that are pushed over to the side. What sparked this whole conversation for me, what made me think this was important to talk about, is I was talking to someone recently who had an experience at work where they, as a Black woman, felt like they did not have the power to object to a way that they were being encouraged to move and work. And as I'm having this conversation, I was sort of thinking about the work that I do in diversity, equity, and inclusion coaching / consulting, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if organizations, if societies, if schools, if whatever, wherever there's groups of people gathered together, if we normalized listening to the people who don't normally have a voice in society, if we normalized allowing women to say, I'm feeling like there's an excess level of patriarchy in how we're having this conversation. If we allowed for Black people to say, I think that what you're saying is racist, and here's why. But here's the problem. Why in so many organizations and in so many places in society, we don't have this normalization of allowing the people who are on the receiving end, the blunt end, as I call it, of society's treatment, to be the ones to name their own experience. It's because dominant culture, specifically white men, by and large, find it difficult to relinquish that power. So we say things like, we don't want people to take advantage of the system. We don't want to get, we even going back to the whole Believe Women campaign, whenever I remember this very clearly, whenever I would share Believe Women, and I would just say that statement, Believe Women, there would be so many people who would fill my page and my inbox with, well, people will take advantage of that. That this like giving over of people to name their experience is a threat to the power structure that says those with power get to determine what's racist, what is xenophobic, what is homophobic, what is sexist, what is patriarchal. Those with power get to name those things, not the people who are experiencing it, because they don't know as well as we do. We are in a country in the United States where it was within our DNA, it was within our collective consciousness. And when I say our, I guess I should just say powerful white men. It was within the DNA of those folks to say that the only people who could decide who the president was were white men who owned property, the powerful, a society that was catering to the powerful, a society that said, if you have power, if you have wealth, if you are a part of the dominant culture, then you have a say. If you do not, you don't. And to this day, in small pockets of our society, we still have this orientation that says, if you have power, we trust you. If you do not, we don't. And you know this to be true. If you are a person of color watching this, if you're a woman watching this, if you're watching this and you're queer, that at work, in certain social gatherings, you feel at times, I know, and I'll speak for myself and say that I have felt at times, I don't want to be a pain in the ass by naming that thing that just happened. So I'm just going to laugh and go with it. Or I'm not going to object to it. Or I start to gaslight myself. And when I think back on what was said or done, I go, yeah, maybe that's not exactly how it happened. I know I felt gross. I know I felt pushed back on my heels. I know I felt like what was done or said was inappropriate, but I don't want to stir anything. I don't want anybody to be mad at me. And so in order to get to a place where you become an outspoken person, You have to jump over so many of your own emotional hurdles just to be able to stand in your own space and say and name that something happened, something was said, there's a behavior, there's a structure, there's a way of doing things that is doing harm to me. Just to be able to name that, you have your own emotional baggage. And then on top of that, you have to go up against a society that in many ways discourages you naming something that makes the status quo uncomfortable. And ladies and gentlemen, people, humans, friends, everyone watching this, we have to do better. We have to normalize letting people tell us when we've said or done something that they believe to be out of bounds, without us being defensive, without us going on the offensive and attacking them. We need to be a society that trusts that human beings are capable, by and large, of doing the right thing. Otherwise, we're doomed anyway. Let me say this last thing and then tell you guys about something else, and then I'll be done. Okay. In the creation poem that you find in Genesis, in the First Testament of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, there's the story, there's the Jewish version of how the world came to be. And so many of us, growing up in church and being in Sunday school, you hear this story and you read this story and maybe treat it like it's history. And maybe for some of you it is history. Hey, that's fine. I don't see it as a historical account. I see it, and there's a lot that leads into me saying that. There's this poem, this story is told in such a way to send a message about the nature of the divine and human beings. And this story has been, over the last 100 years or so, made out to be the story of the fall of man. That like this story was to show us that human beings cannot be trusted. And in that, and there is some some very nuanced ways of arriving at that sort of place of that being a lesson from this about human beings and trusting human beings, the nature of human beings. But from that story has come this distrust for human beings that we have, right? We don't trust humans. We don't trust our intentions. We don't trust salesmen. We don't trust mechanics. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust anyone, right? And I understand that because we have seen where human beings have taken advantage of other human beings. But one of the most painful, harmful ways that we do that in our society, and I alluded to it earlier, is that we use this fall of man, all human beings are subject to decay and evil and yada, 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 and we apply it really mainly to those who are most in need of our help. And instead of helping them, we look at them skeptically. I've talked about this before when I've talked about helping the homeless. When you give homeless people food or money, and there's that part of you that wonders how they got there. Or sometimes in our society, we look at people and we look at where they wound up, and we assume that the story of how they got there is that they made a bunch of bad decisions and therefore they wound up being where they are. And then we have less sympathy for them or empathy for them, because we've allowed ourselves to believe that when you see someone that's downtrodden, they're downtrodden because they deserved to be there. And I just want to say this. As we get ready to vote in like 2 weeks, as you go to the poll, I have seen, and I'm now talking directly to those of you who are part of some sort of faith tradition, whatever that faith tradition is. If you're not a part of a faith tradition, God bless you, grace and peace. You don't have to listen to the rest of this unless you really want to. But if you are a part of a faith tradition and you are voting this week, you're voting by mail, you're going to a polling place, whatever it is, as you enter into that voting booth or start to fill out that mail-in ballot, I just really want to encourage you to think about the way you think about people. Think about the way you think. to allow yourself to wrestle with the way you think about people who don't have. The way you think about people who are not you. To my white male brothers out there, to think about the way you view everyone who's not a white man, and to consider if you're going into a voting booth only thinking about what helps you keep power or your sense of power. Because the reality is the political system takes advantage of people who want power, but they're never going to give it to you anyway. So many of these white supremacist groups and these hate groups that are allied with and pro the current president of the United States are doing so because of the illusion that he is re-empowering them, when the reality is their life is not changing, other than the fact that they now feel permission to hate Black folks publicly. That's all I have for you. That's a hard stop. Okay, I'm going to do a hard stop today. I'm not going to even that's what I'm sorry for the abrupt landing. When you're out of words, you're out of words. So sorry for the rough landing here, folks, but I appreciate all of you who watched. If you watched this, you've been watching this for 25 minutes on the replay, I imagine that there's something worth sharing, or at least tagging a friend if you're on Facebook in the comments, or on Instagram in the comments also. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being a part of this community. Those of you who are here every single week, really appreciate you. Please, if you've not already, just say something in the comments so I know you're there, and I'll come by and say hello to you if I have not already. Grace and peace to all of you. Until next time.